Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Heathen Dad. I'm your host, Wolf the Red. Today, I'm going to be answering one of the most controversial questions in heathenry that seems to be more prevalent in these modern times. Is folkism a valid ideology to hold when practicing heathenry? No. Okay, fine. I guess I should talk about why folkism isn't a valid Reconstructionist argument and why it has no place in modern heathenry. First, let's figure out exactly what folkists are. I've heard several different versions, but my good friends Eliakai and Ocean came up with a solid definition that I agree with and support. It's the belief that ancestral ties give benefit, privilege, or access to a religious tradition, especially in lieu of a living culture. It's the idea that somehow by having a blood tie, you are more entitled to practice heathenry. And if you don't have heathen ancestors, you should not be practicing heathenry. Sounds foolish, right? But why? For one, their argument is that you must have a genetic link to an ancient person before the religion was essentially wiped out. This is ridiculous because ancient heathens didn't even know about genetics. No one did. We don't even know their opinions on people of different skin colors. The world was much bigger then. Most ancient heathens didn't leave their immediate farm areas or villages. There were no rules talking about bloodlines or genetic links. In fact, we have no sources for rules or regulations for spiritual practices in heathenry at all. Zero. The idea that you have to have ancient ancestors of a certain faith to be able to practice that faith in modern times doesn't track. Ancestor veneration, as I have pointed out in one of my last videos, doesn't have to be bound by blood or faith. In ancestor veneration, religion can be largely removed. It doesn't matter what gods they worshipped. Giving gifts to your ancestors is as simple as that. If we look at other cultures, maybe such as Japanese or Chinese, they offer gifts to their ancestors just as we heathens do. No gods even have to be involved. You can interchange the practices, and they would look nearly identical to practices that we would be doing. What about our Christian ancestors? Should we not give offerings to the several hundred Christians that came before us just because we have converted in today's times? Good luck, or lack thereof, with that. Another way I see folkists try to justify their views is to look at the ancient Greeks, how they barred some people from practicing at one temple versus another. But that doesn't support their arguments like they think it does. They were all still Greeks. They all had the DNA that folkists say they needed to have. So why did the Greeks prevent outside worship in certain areas? Residents mostly. It was that simple. Athenians would worship at the Athenian temples in Athens, because that was their home cult. People from Thebes would go to the temples in Thebes. There were public temples and open rites, but in those, the language was the limiting factor. So just move or learn ancient Greek. No big deal. But in either case, none of this had to do with race. Shout out to Eliakai and Beofold for walking me through those concepts. Another thing that makes me just laugh at this notion of folkism, I didn't know anything about heathenry when I started. Almost no one does usually. They just fall into it after hearing the call. As most polytheists will tell you, the gods are on the move again in ways we haven't seen in a while. They are reaching out to people and making themselves known. Now, if these people are not lying, and I know I'm not, then it seems the gods are interacting with people. That means the gods are choosing who they are reaching out to. So I find it very interesting that a few racists are willing to speak for the gods and tell other people that they aren't allowed to interact with the powerful deities that they are trying to establish an active praxis with based on skin pigmentation. Another argument I hear in favor, too often, from folkist heathen groups is that we must protect our white heritage from all the black people, or others, trying to get in and steal heathenry from us. Bitch, where? I've been doing this a long time. I've met a total of 3 people of color who are interested enough to attend a ritual in person. And that's back when I helped run the largest heathen group in the Southeast that was known for being inclusive. There just aren't that many people of color interested in heathenry. I personally think there's some deep issues with that, but I feel like it's a topic for another video. Also, I want to touch on what really makes me scratch my head on why these folkists think the way they do. Many of them feel they have some secret knowledge they must protect, that outsiders must be kept at bay, and the things we know must be shrouded in mystery. So people outside what they deem worthy are not allowed to practice heathenry. That without these elders and gothies running the various heathen groups across the US and the world, our religion would die out and be lost to time. Oh boy, do I have a shock for them. Everything, literally every bit of knowledge and lore that every heathen on the whole planet uses to build their foundation of ancient heathenry is free and readily available at every university library and most public libraries. Not one person has a scrap of secret knowledge that the rest of us couldn't look up. In fact, if every heathen, and there's less than about 20,000 of us across the world, by the way, suddenly died, eventually someone could stumble into those sources and books and rebuild the religion exactly the same. Nothing is special about what we are doing. So gatekeeping the religion from certain groups is utterly ridiculous. But Wolf, what about the Native Americans? They gatekeep their religion. It's no different, you ignorantly yell at me. Well, remember how I said that heathens don't have a secret knowledge tradition? Natives do. It's a living tradition. Unbroken. Heathens were wiped out by the sword and conversion. We went decades and centuries without having active practitioners. There are natives alive and well today practicing as their ancestors did, using the knowledge that has been passed down by word of mouth from parents and spiritual elders that keep the lore of their traditions. If they were to die, they really could risk losing most of their knowledge and practices. Someone could try to reconstruct it with the bits that we know, but it would never be the same. And much the same way as modern heathenry will never be the same as ancient heathenry. There was lots lost. We try, but it won't be the same because the stuff that died out is just gone. What I wouldn't give for even an hour with an ancient heathen, a link to a living tradition. Many native groups have a living tradition. They have that link. So they do have something to protect their knowledge of traditions from. Those that would take advantage of it, and with the bloody history the native peoples have had to experience through exploitation, colonialism, and profiteering off their traditions, I don't blame them for having their guard up. And with an added caveat, there is a diversity of native opinions on the topic, and not all natives want to bar non-natives from practicing, but a respect for the culture is required to participate because of the exploitation risk. Well, I'm going to wrap this up by saying this. We live in modern times. History isn't as romantic as we try to put forward sometimes. We, as Reconstructionist heathens, should be focused on rebuilding the religion more so over the culture. Learning it and understanding it is important for building the religious frameworks, but the past belongs in the past. So that's it for this episode. I hope I have explained this in a way that makes sense and helps you with combating folkish and racist people who try and hold heathenry as something it's not. Many other polytheists and pagans have released videos on this topic from their traditions' perspectives, and I'll be linking all their videos and some sources in the description. And remember, go big or go home.